Welcome to NBR This Week, a look back at our leading stories over the past 5 days. Auckland tailor Murray Crane of bespoke suit store Crane Brothers has been fined $3,000 in order to pay a former employee almost $21,000 in unpaid wages and benefits. Jordan Gibson had been hired as creative director of former fashion store Gubbin Mackie, of which Murray Crane is sole director and 90% shareholder. Mr Gibson was given the other 10% of shares in the company, 1949 Limited, with the potential to earn more shares if the business performed. The store did not perform, and Mr Crane sought to change the way Mr Gibson was paid from salary to drawings, which, according to the Employment Relations Authority, failed to abide by the terms of Mr Gibson's employment contract. The Reserve Bank is relaxing its loan-to-value restrictions on bank lending, but has given a blunt warning to banks to lend responsibly or face intervention. Governor Adrian Orr also confirmed loan-to-value ratios are here to stay. In its latest 6-monthly financial stability report, the central bank announced the banks will be able to provide 20% of new owner-occupied loans to borrowers with less than 20% deposits. That's up from 15% previously. More surprising has been the property investor changes, whereby banks will be able to provide 5% of new investor loans to borrowers with less than 30% deposits. Previously, it was 35%. So are property investors more likely to stay in the market? NBR's Grant Walker spoke to Property Investors Federation Chief Executive Andrew King.
No, we haven't seen that people are getting out, but what we have seen is that our members are saying that they're not likely to buy more properties that they would have previously. So as a lot of regulatory and cost increases have been imposed and making it harder to provide rental property, it's stopping them from providing more, but it's not actually causing them to sell. Although in a survey which we did about a month ago, we asked about the changes to the tenancy laws, and that did actually provide quite an interesting result in that 33% actually said that would cause them to sell.
Speculation is rife among the legal community on who will become New Zealand's next Chief Justice. Despite a consultation process underway, some in the legal community fret the process might be focused on how the person is perceived rather than their ability to make good law. Court of Appeal judges Justice Helen Winkelman and Justice Stephen Cos are viewed as the top contenders with Supreme Court Judge Justice Marco Regan and Court of Appeal Judge Justice Joe Williams outside runners. A problem highlighted by lawyers is that the current Supreme Court has been divided, creating precedents that can't be used. There is a strong feeling the next top judge needs the respect of their colleagues to create strong consensus judgments and not become the anti-establishment figure Justice Sian Elias is viewed as. Dame Sian retires in March next year. The coalition government will introduce legislation to help indebted farmers negotiate with their banks rather than being forced off their farms losing everything. Agricultural Minister Damien O'Connor says he expects the debt mediation bill to go through Parliament by the end of next year. It's most likely to be based on legislation in New South Wales, which requires mediation before a bank can foreclose on a farmer's loan. We spoke to Mr O'Connor about the new legislation.
That means that there'll be a process where, if you do have an unfortunate incident where farmers have got to sell up, then there's a fair process between the bank and the farmer to maximise the value of the assets that might be sold and ensure that there's a fair balance in negotiation.
So does that mean then that the banks can't just come in and foreclose and sell your farm?
Correct.
Federated Farmers Vice President Andrew Hoggard says his organisation has been involved in discussions about the legislation and supports the changes. In her first interview since taking the chief executive role at Russell McVeagh, Jo Avenell says the troubled firm has made progress. The big legal firm has been repairing its reputation and culture following revelations of alleged sexual assault at the firm. In July, Russell McVeagh admitted it made serious mistakes and said it would implement close to more than 50 recommendations Dame Margaret Baisley made in her independent probe into the matter. Ms Avenell says the 30-strong partnership group is younger, more dynamic and fresher-faced than in the past. She asserts that the firm will deliver on all recommendations, but is still reviewing the appropriate way to do some of those things. RCR Infrastructure New Zealand's latest accounts reveal a $502,000 loss for the year ended June 30. RCR Infrastructure New Zealand Limited is in a joint venture with WSP Opus to deliver a $7.5 million design solution for City Rail Link. Its Australian parent, ASX-listed RCR Tomlinson, was placed in voluntary administration on November 21. Last week, CRL Chief Executive Sean Sweeney told NBR the New Zealand subsidiary was likely to be sold along with its parent, RCR Tomlinson, but CRL expects to continue working with it. NBR's Calida Stewart-Menteith spoke to Harbet Asset Management's Shane Solly about New Zealand's earnings season.
How do you think it went? Because there were a few shockers in there.
Yeah, look, I think on the whole, the result season was actually pretty good. It delivered on what it said on the label. Consistent, not too many surprises, a few companies talking about costs increasing and just a bit worried about what's happening globally. And then we had one or two that were off the chart. So Fletcher Building and Metro Glass in particular were pretty weak numbers, surprised the market, and those stock prices got knocked around. And obviously in Metro's case, unfortunately, they may need to raise additional capital. The rest of the results season was actually quite useful for how the market's thinking about New Zealand stocks. Consistency is important, and that's actually contributed to the New Zealand market outperforming in this pullback in global markets.
And looking ahead to next week, experienced investors will train a cynical, wide-angled eye on management and a board. But are they helpers or hurters? Investing is war, and investors want to make sure their fellow trench dwellers aren't cowards or enemy agents. So just who is Shoeshine taking a look at? Head to our website to find out, and enjoy your weekend.
To unlock your 2 free articles a week, head to nbr.co.nz.